Hey everybody, a little nervous about doing this video. It's about a dream that I had. That was it was a really strange dream. I've talked to several people about it, and everybody says it sounds like a dream out of Revelations or something. Not really a hardcore Christian or anything like that. You know, hell, we're all sinners. You know, and I am by no means perfect. But this dream kind of shook me up. It a couple of years ago. I, I was dreaming that I was at a friend's house. It was in the middle of summertime. The sun was high in the sky, and I recognized a friend, but I didn't recognize the place he lived in. It was a new place that I've never seen before. In a nice neighborhood, green grass, little road in front. Kids were playing outside in the street, and my friend wasn't there. He was at a store or something like that, and I was waiting on him to get back. Well, while I was waiting on him for him to get back, I was drawn toward the sky. I was looking up at the sky. And it was a nice blue sky, partly cloudy. There's probably 4 or 5 clouds in the sky. And I was looking up at the sky, and I was drawn to it. And I noticed that there was like a tear in the sky, and within this tear, there was lightning and black clouds swirling in a clockwise motion. And it started to open up. I knew right away it wasn't no weather anomaly or nothing like that. I'm a sci-fi fan. I dabbled a little bit into physics and the universal science and stuff like that. And to me, it looked like the opening of a wormhole, or like a tear in the sky, basically. And it started to open, and as it opened, it turned into a circle. And I was standing there in awe. I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. Then out of this circle appeared. It wasn't like something traveled through the circle. It was like it appeared in front of the rip. For lack of better words, I'm gonna just say wormhole. Appeared in front of the wormhole, and it reminded me of wagon wheels. It looked like 3 wagon wheels interlocked together, one this way, one that way, and then one kind of in the middle. And the wheels were flipping end over end over each other. And there was 3 of them. They come through, or appeared, and they went different directions, and they started turning faster and faster and faster. And as they got to turning faster and faster, it started glowing, and they started glowing like a green orb, a green ball of light is what it looked like at a distance. And then at the same time that this was happening, I looked around to see if if anybody else was seeing what I was seeing. And there were some kids that were just drawn to the sky. There were some adults that were drawn to the sky just like I was. I heard a lady in the house next door screaming at her kids to get inside, like it was a tornado coming or something. She was really freaking out, screaming at them, "Get inside now." Anyway, while I was watching, looking at all these people, for some acknowledgement that they seen the same thing I was seeing, I noticed that there was a group of people across the road, a couple of children and an adult, that were looking up at the sky, and they were smiling. And I thought that was odd, that really don't fit what's going on here. And they were smiling, and they were looking up in the sky and just had the biggest smile on their face, and their eyes were turned up to the sky, but they wasn't looking in the direction that I was looking, or that anyone else was looking. They were looking in a different direction of the sky, and I looked up to where they were looking, and I didn't see anything. And then I looked back at them, and it was like they were becoming transparent. They didn't seem to feel anything or whatever. They just stared at that one spot in the sky, and they were becoming transparent. You could see through them. And then they faded away. They didn't just vanish or disappear. They faded slowly away until they wasn't there anymore, and there was nothing left where they were standing. What they were wearing and everything went with them. I know I've heard about the rapture and stuff, but I was led to believe in church that you would float up into the sky. This didn't happen in my dream. People just slowly vanished and they disappeared. This really set me back. I was astounded in a dream, and it seemed so real. All the colors were there. Everything seemed so real, and I was just freaking out. And then my attention was drawn again to these orbs, or these balls of green light that were in the sky. Now there were several of them. They were as far as you could see in every direction, and I can see that there's like green. The green ball was firing. I guess the best way to say it is it looked like it was firing toward the land. You know, there's green pulses coming from it, and when the green pulse hit the land in the distance, you could see like a green dome appear and then disappear, and then you can hear people screaming, and it was just terrible. I mean, people were screaming everywhere. The sky was filled with the sounds of screaming. And then I looked back around me, and everybody was gone. It was like they ran in their house or went for, and you know, to hide or whatever. And I couldn't hide because I was at a friend's house, and he wasn't at home, and I was waiting on him to get home, and I was just scared to death. I didn't know what to do. So the next thing I remember is I'm not where I was. I'm not standing in my friend's yard anymore. I don't know how I moved or whatever, but I was standing in a city that had been just destroyed to almost nothing. The buildings were crumbled to rubble. There's multiple, almost everything seemed like it was on fire. And there was this woman that was trying to get up into a tractor trailer truck and a semi truck. She was trying to climb up into the cab. And I saw these creatures or beings that I believe came from this rift. This lady was trying to get into a cab of a truck, you know, and these creatures or beings, I would want to call them demons or aliens. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay, he wants to say hey. All right, he's gonna say hey. Say hey. He wants to say hey. My Siberian Husky. He ain't but 12 weeks old. All right, there you go, buddy. But anyway, these beings that I saw that were, they were trying to pull this lady out of the truck, and they got her. They pulled her down to the ground, had her down on her knees. They surrounded her. There was 4 of them. They had her surrounded, and they were tall, skinny, had skin that was dark. I mean, it was lumpy. Not sure if it was like leather or tree bark. I mean, it looked like a mixture of both, actually. And their eyes were red, glowing red eyes. I know this sounds crazy, but that's just what I saw. And then what appeared to be the leader of the 4 placed his hand upon a woman's forehead and held his hand there. And while he had his hand on her forehead, you could see a red light coming from his hand and onto her forehead, and he just held it there, and her head rocked back like she was, you know, in pain. And you can just, the voice that she made was inhuman. It wasn't really a scream, it was more like a screech. It was inhuman. And when he moved his hand away from her, she wasn't fighting anymore. She had given in. She stood up and walked over to me and looked at me, and her eyes were glowing blue, and she looked at me, and in the voice of a child, she said that God is angry, and he's angry at man, and that everything that was made by man would be burned and destroyed because we stole life from a tree. And since we stole life from a tree, everything had to be destroyed, and life would be restored to this tree. That way the tree of life could once again thrive on earth. And I woke up right after that, and I have no idea what this dream means. It would seem like it would make a great movie, to say the least. But I've talked to a couple of people that came to my door from a church, and which is odd, you know, not many people come to my door from a church. But that Saturday, about I think it may have been 3. Yeah, it was like 3 men came from Trinity Church to my house. And, of course, to try to see if we would go to church or whatever. And just out of the blue, I decided to tell them about the dream. And the oldest one of them told me that in the end times, that young men would have uh, dreams, prophetic dreams. And he said it seemed like one of them, and I was terrified. I said, boy, I hope that don't happen. That's just terrible. I mean, there was just no hope. It was awful. I don't really know. I mean, that was he looked at it through a religious way, and